Chapter 9. Welcome to the Spirit Soul series podcast, and we've come back with another episode, and we are going to be discussing. I've got Supriya Chechi here, so we're going to be discussing chapter 9. Which verse was it in chapter
Yeah,
9?
Hare Krishna and Jai Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
We are in chapter 9. We've done verses 1 and verse 2. And so we are now going to
Ah,
start with verse 3 in chapter 9.
okay.
Verse 2 is had a long purport. So that's what we basically got through last time. Okay. And here, just a quick recap. You recall anything from the last class or the class? Of course, we've had a 2 week gap. I couldn't make
Yeah.
myself available last class. Basically, it's the
So,
glories of Bhakti Yoga.
hmm.
How you see, verse
So
1 is,
in this
yeah,
chapter, basically, Krishna's Krishna goes more into depth about Bhakti Yoga in this chapter, like compared to the seventh and the eighth, where he's kind of beginning to give an idea of how devotional service is like the main goal. But here he's becoming more like sort of he gets more personal with him. Like right now, I'm also like every day I'm reading the Gita, read the
really,
Sanskrit verse. Yeah,
uh-huh,
I read in the morning. I'll read I'll read out the exact Sanskrit thing, and without like they were written in the Sanskrit language, I'll read that out, and then I'll read
okay,
the translation and then the purport, whatever. So I'll read that. So right now I've got to the 18th chapter, like every day reading the purport, basically going through the purports of all the chapters. So if you as even when even during the 12 between the 13th and the 17th chapter, like when Prabhupada is describing like the meanings of all the verses and what is going on, it's also described like when now he's describing knowledge and the
yeah,
material modes and those things. He's like
uh-huh,
that's coming in relation to devotional service. That is coming with relation to. So there's always like in this between these middle chapters are more of what is like happening, what was the most important thing. And
right,
even after that also there's like this thing of like, okay, knowledge is important, but it's tied with the devotional aspect of it.
devotional, right,
Like
right, right,
you need to be aware of those things, and then yeah. So
and
this
carry on doing
chapter in
devotional
particular,
service. Yeah.
yeah, carry on doing. And so this chapter is like for me, this chapter is like very. I really have put a lot of importance in this chapter because it has my
Mm,
favorite verses.
that's right. You said
So
this earlier. How many purports are you reading? How is it every day? What
So I'll
what's
read like around 6 7 verses like as part of my routine. So I'll just
okay?
read like 6 7 Sanskrit verses, and then of the Gita, like from this Vedanta based website. So I'll read like 6 7 verses, then the translation. So I'll let's say like if I was to read like something, so I'll read this part. I'll read the
Yeah,
Sanskrit.
that is the
I won't read this.
Devanagari script. Yeah, you
Yeah.
are able to read. Okay, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I won't read this. I'll just read because I feel like if you read the original, it's a little better. So I
Better
read this.
experience. Correct.
Yeah, and so then after reading that, then I'll read the translation and then the purport also. So I'll
Oh,
go
very
through the purport.
nice.
So I'll read like maybe like 6 7, like because during work days it's difficult to read so many. So I'll read like 6 7 or whatever, and then during the weekends I get more time, so I can read a lot more.
Oh,
So
nice. Mm,
my idea is like I'll keep reading. So even if I finish 18 chapters, again start from starting,
oh,
and I'll
very
read it again.
nice.
So once
That's
I finish, like I'll be finishing the 18th chapter. I've 33 verses done in the 18th chapter. So I've got I think around 35 more. 30. Sorry, how many? There are
there are
70
70
verses.
plus verses in the
Yeah,
last chapter.
last chapter.
72 or 70,
78, I think. I think 78.
78. Yeah, correct.
So once I finish the
78.
remaining, then I'll start again from starting from the first chapter onwards again. So
Mm,
I'll keep doing this like it's a repetition. So at least like over time, I'll be able to like imbibe some of
very nice.
the
Yeah,
the
very nice
meaning,
habit.
and
Mm.
so that's what I'm planning to do like now every day in the morning or something like that.
That's
So
very
yeah.
nice because the Bhagavad Gita should always remain and will remain our like foundation of our understanding. Even if we develop a lot of taste and interest in the other higher texts like Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita or any of the other things, the Bhagavad Gita, because it's just like really ground level how to understand what's happening around us through the eyes of Gita.
Bhagavatam is like Bhagavatam is also, I would say, like it's one of the most important things. The difference maybe in the Bhagavad Gita is that in Bhagavad Gita you can see it's Krishna talking to Arjuna directly. So it's like a you're getting the essential message of what is important. But in the Bhagavatam, like there's so many messages being said, and a lot of the times it's the setting is not necessarily with Krishna, but it's about Krishna, and it's about different aspects of different people and different avatars and different settings. And that is also important because there's a lot of meaning behind that, but it takes a long time to finish the whole thing. So I
Mm,
finished once, and to start, if I have to start again, like now I'll be like, okay, I know like what are the cantos that would be important. Just revisit once or twice and go keep going over certain things and all that stuff. So but I wanted to finish the Bhagavatam once at least. So I did that. Now I'll just go and read the most essential parts of it. But the Gita, I thought it'll be easier to keep like
sure.
reading it every day
Again
and
and
keep
again.
repeating it. When you finish it once, again start again finish it once, start again, like that. Keep
Anyway,
going
it
on like
seems
that.
Krishna is inspiring you and giving you correct ideas from within the heart. It looks like that because this is a
Yeah, I
very
mean
good and solid. Most
everything is
people, yeah, go on.
everything. I mean, most of the things like I don't necessarily like. I it's written. I think I was reading it today only. Like in the 18th chapter, some I think it was which verse it was, but they were saying that like whether you're in success or failure, you shouldn't like
Yatra Yogeshwar. Oh, okay, okay, right.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
go.
something I kind of. But whether you're in success or failure, like a person like a true person who's like renounced or like who's like renowned, like who's who's free from the bondage of materialistic activities and all that stuff. Somebody who's not, who's like equipoised with the in success or failure and things like that. So it's like, I mean, it's a message that's very important because even if you read the Gita like every day and you listen to it, you'll still be succumbed to all these things again and again. But the important thing is that if you read it every day, at least you are like constantly aware of the importance of it. So then you can always protect, in one sense, protect yourself from that that problem. Whereas like if you don't read it, I feel it's a lot more dangerous because
Mm,
if you don't read it, like you're very easily susceptible to like something bad happening to you, and then you making and your entire life going down the drain or
correct,
whatever.
correct. Because it's all about how you respond to situations. And in order to give the right response, there we have a choice. In order to give a right or safe response that doesn't worsen the situation or whatever the setback is, you need to equip yourself or arm yourself. And the best way to equip and arm yourself, as you just said, is to keep reading and reading the Bhagavad Gita because something will come to your rescue, even if it is a situation where you've not been given much time to prepare for a setback or someone else's some views, or you're just in one of the lower modes and we are going to fly off the handle. And I have seen lives ruined by the inability to respond with caution. I've seen, close at home, I've seen otherwise stable qualified engineer relative who was doing quite well. I'm not sure. Anyway, he lost his job, he flew off the handle, his response was totally out of proportion with the trigger or stimulus from the other side, and that led to so many other kind of catastrophes. He was already a married man with children dependent. He couldn't face the shame. He was not a person who had said so like this. Then he took to drinks, then the whole family went down, then he came out of it. So when you look back, even when I read so many things that happen on the internet, it's just as if, or sometimes when you watch certain drama series or TV serials, the little more educated and little more sober ones, you realize that people are making such a mess because they are not equipped neither with the kind of understanding that the Bhagavad Gita gives
So
about most
most
work.
of the yeah, what you said was correct because like most of the people, like I mean, even if you listen to people who have good intentions, but who are not, let's say, like spiritually inclined or anything like that, the what you'll realize is that most people are just basically reacting to things most of the time, and so they are kind
Exactly.
of not thinking too much about, if I talk and say something about Krishna to somebody, most people are going to be like, okay, that's nice, that's cute, or that's whatever. So, they're gonna react like that. Yeah, whatever, that's okay. And but it's not for me, like, that kind of
Ah,
thinking.
that's right. It's not for me.
And it's not, so I'm like, okay, but the thing is, it's different when you are actually when you're actually practicing it every day, and you see the people who are not thinking in that way. They're just like reacting to things, and they're not actually like kind of sort of, they're not introspecting, because like you can see, like, when something good happens to them, become very happy. When something bad happens to them, become very sad. And
Correct.
like sometimes you don't like, um when you're constantly being like, when you read the scriptures, you're constantly told like, you should never be too happy, you should never be too sad, you should try to
Correct.
maintain
Correct.
balance. And it's difficult to do, but like the more you keep reading it, and the more you realize, like, when something good happens, you're like, okay, this is temporary, this is for some time, and then this will also change, and you are going to go through a cycle of like suffering, and then happiness, suffering, happiness, like, you know
And
that
meanwhile,
idea of, yeah.
absolutely, you're absolutely right. But just also that meanwhile, try and increase your source of happiness from within this world of Krishna. One is, of course, reading. I know now your situation doesn't allow you to travel or visit places in time.
Shravana
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kirtana, and what's the other one?
Archana, Vandana, like that, there
Archana.
are many.
Uh,
Yeah, whichever suit. But what I meant more in your situation
yeah,
is
I
apart from.
wish I wish that was the case, but like, I don't know, it's very difficult to kind of
No, I don't
the
mean just.
maximum. Yeah,
No, I meant
yeah.
if you could travel. I meant
Travel.
something. Travel.
Okay,
I didn't mean. I realize your situation and your job is very demanding. So I don't mean that get into one of those that track, but just
travel
travel.
and yeah,
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 it may be only once in 6 months, but you select carefully and manage to go somewhere, and it will stay with you forever. The memories of that exposure to that particular place or temple or historic spot or something. Anyway, we'll see what plans Krishna has
yeah,
for you. Let's see. So here, like you correctly said, chapter 9 is crucial. It's called the most confidential knowledge, and it's not as if knowledge has not been given right from the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. As we know, very early, even in chapter 2, we are told about how the soul exists within the body, and the soul is eternal and nothing can destroy it, and so on. And for a lot of people, this itself is mind blowing. If because no other department or no other subject ever talks about this. So it's, I mean, casually we say things like put your heart and soul into this effort, or I really lost my heart to something. And yeah, the word soul is used very, very loosely, but without any real conviction or understanding that such a thing does exist. It's really small. It's what gives life to a human body. The minute it leaves, then there is no life. Body is a dead body, and so on. So that kind of confidential or out of the ordinary, extraordinary knowledge was given in chapter 2. And then we go on, and in chapter 7 we were told that there are 4 categories of people who do surrender to Krishna. And then that means that we learn a little bit of how we took to this path, because we can see ourselves, in falling into one of these categories, so maybe with one leg in more than one category. That is chapter 7. Chapter 8, we are given some astonishing information about how it is so important to remember Krishna at the time of death, or whatever you remember is going to determine your next destination, and so on. So that's also astonishing. And I was listening to a podcast of a lady who died. She was young, but she obviously managed to grasp this information very fast. You can look it up at some stage. It's one of these Namaras podcasts, the late morning program. And he and his wife, Tulsi Harrison, they are interviewing the husband and son of this lady who passed away. This lady's name is Parambhava, was, and she looks of colored origin, not necessarily completely black, but not white either. Couldn't make out where she's from. Parambhava Devidasi Namaras podcast. It says astonishing departure of extraordinary Vaishnava, or not that is yet to be aired. This one is about drug addiction. Yet to come, Sitapati Das and his son Prahlad, Parambhava. It has to show Namra sitting with his wife Tulasi next to him. This is the one.
Okay, then
This the one which shows her
one,
sitting.
this one?
Parambhava. There you have the name Parambhava.
Parambhava, yeah.
So it's kind of nothing short of extraordinary, and it's not as if anyone in ISKCON is even aware that such a thing has happened, because she was just it's like her landing, like a plane lands. The landing in ISKCON was not smooth at all. She joined or came in touch with ISKCON books and Prabhupada and devotees at a time at the end of the last century in New Vrindavan. You've heard of this New Vrindavan in West Virginia. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, that community was going through a lot of upheavals. And shortly after she joined there, that community was expelled from ISKCON. I know that because when I joined, it was just let back into ISKCON because it is coming back on track. Because a lot of deviant, speculative stuff was going on there. Women were being made sannyasis. They were introducing church choir kind of singing in the temple program. People are walking around in black robes. It was all completely crazy. And the main leader there was kicked out, and then now he's no more, and so on. Anyway, so her landing was not smooth. And as she says, she really loved whatever knowledge she'd got. But if right there in the early stages, when you're just finding your feet in spiritual life, out of the blue comes this big blow. You're told that the community you're part of has been expelled. This is all, nonsense or whatever. So anybody else would have just quit and gone away and said, oh, just forget it. It's the same everywhere. It's all this fighting and bickering and confusing. She somehow picked herself up, and she'd already taken initiation from this controversial guru, now no more, called Kirtanananda Swami. And New Vrindavan had become big controversy and scandal by then. So she quit, and just see her presence of mind is obviously coming from some past lives, and she already had a lot of taste. She must have been 20 plus by then. So more, maybe a little more. She moves to New Zealand or Australia, meets the Sitapati, marries him, has a series of miscarriages. The child doesn't grow, or she's forced to abort, something happens, her body can't. So her health is already weak. They do preaching, they start a preaching center in New Zealand. They then, their guru tells them to try South America. So they start a restaurant or a preaching center in Lima, Peru. Then they move back to Australia, New Zealand, by which time she's had a son, Prahlad. He's normal. He's about 9 or 10. But in 2008, she's diagnosed with cancer. And the cancer finally takes her life in 2018. No more. It is COVID times. Sorry. But what is astonishing is the presence of mind she shows. You have to really listen to it. And the man, the husband, looks very young himself, is speaking in a very sober and calm and composed way that this Parambhava lady, she had no wish to try to extend her life by trying all these chemical and other methods which would just bewilder her consciousness and make her so weak that she wouldn't be able to even control what she was thinking. And there are like 3-4 times she's sent to the a hospital, and it was COVID times, so blood transfusions were necessary. They became a problem. Eventually, when she knew she was going to pass away, she guided herself, her husband and son very nicely through that situation, because we have to remember she didn't get much time in the movement. We know this other story of Rudrani, the Western disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who married an Ayurveda family guy from Kerala, and then she suffered a lot from arthritis and died in her late 40s. And she was such a Tulasi Devi worshipper and servant that she is said to have literally in the final moment said, look, there is Tulasi, I can see her coming and I'm leaving, and she left. But that's different because she got high quality association. She got all possible facilities. She moved personally with Srila Prabhupada. She lived in a community of very stable devotees somewhere in British Columbia. Exactly. Yeah. That's where she finally passed away. But that was not the case with Parambhava. So what's really admirable about this lady is that whatever was just a straw, she grasped at it. She really grasped at it and didn't complain about the confusion and the mess she experienced in her early days or early months. Or about the setback she suffered, that although she was trying, there were many miscarriages before she got the child, and then promptly after that the cancer diagnosis. Seems she had no lamentation or no. So she is one of those examples of obviously someone who read chapter 8, which is talking about what consciousness one must have and how one must prepare for one's death, because your consciousness is going to determine your next destiny. And she grasped everything and really took it very much to heart and implemented it in the most hostile of situations. It's one thing to say she had a long life and she knew she was 80 plus and and then there was everyone around. This is nothing of the kind. Maximum should have been 40, maybe less, 30 something. Anyway, so that was chapter 8. Now in chapter 9, it's even more confidential because basically it is a glorification and an illustration of what this devotional service of Bhakti Yoga can do for you. And it's so in chapter 1, in verse 1, Krishna has just finished telling Arjuna that I'm going to share this knowledge because you are not envious. So we hear about how it's a great quality not to have envy. Because if you have envy, then you will inaccurately transmit the knowledge. And that's where the inaccuracy and speculative inaccuracy of many commentators on the Bhagavad Gita, that's what it's rooted in. That there is some deep-rooted envy towards Krishna as someone who can enjoy or who's so powerful, or towards gurus who are right to advise them. So the inaccuracy is a direct result of envy. And because Arjuna doesn't have the quality, Krishna is going to tell him. Fine, that's verse 1. In verse 2, which we looked at in a lot of detail last class because the purport is so long, so many adjectives are given to describe this devotional service. That it's Rajavidya, king of all knowledge, that it's the top secret or very confidential, that is pure, that it's the highest form of religion, that it's happily performed. Susukham kartum avyayam, meaning that it just makes one so happy and joyful to be able to do it. There's a story about another disciple of Srila Prabhupada's called Jayanand Prabhu. Jayanand. He look it up online. Charming appearance. He Jayanand Das ISKCON. Passed away 1 year before Prabhupada, and he was again not that old at all. He is another case like this Parambhava, who grasped Jayanand Prabhu, the life of Jayanand Prabhu. This is his face. That's right. That's him. Very saintly appearance. American. He had a very high degree, university degree, but he was so disgusted with what was being taught in the university departments that he was working as a taxi driver, earning money when he met Prabhupada. Basically, this soul was kind of waiting to come in touch with spiritual life. And then once he came in touch with Prabhupada, Prabhupada made him go back to some regular job, and he was donating that money to support one of the early temples. He was temple president. But it's like not a joke, an observation that he was always so blissful. I don't know where he got his energy from. He wouldn't mind, he was a great cook, and he wouldn't mind cleaning up the whole kitchen long after he had gone to sleep. And he was famous for personally cleaning the toilets in that small temple center. So local guys, local drunks and ruffians and people who were just curious, they would watch, and they would watch him put out toilet, clean stuff. And he just looked always so blissful and absorbed in Krishna and his guru and instructions that one of them is supposed to have said, if the toilet cleaner in the that temple, whoever these Hare Krishnas are, even if they seem weird to us, they wear these things that look like vegetables and float around on the street doing kirtan. If the toilet cleaner, they didn't know at that time that he was also the temple president. Those days it was not so official. It was understood he was manager. That the toilet cleaner is so blissful and radiant, then there must be something really special in this whole movement. So that's another very rare case.
So actually, like now that when you made this point, I was like, actually now I realized that in the movement there's like all different kinds of people who get interested in who are like who
Yeah,
get attached to Krishna consciousness.
sure.
Like there's one kind of devotee that is like that they realize that like he sees that there's no happiness outside. The happiness is in Krishna. So they're completely devoted to anything that in the path of Krishna consciousness. That's why you'll see people. There are some people abroad who are so like Krishna conscious that they'll do anything. They'll do the puja. They'll do everything. They'll dress and they'll do. But then there are also people who then there are people who are interested in the movement, but they're also a bit like materialistically inclined. So they have their own like they will practice Krishna consciousness, but they will also have something in to do else, like
On the side,
there's that kind of
correct,
people.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Then there's somebody like maybe like me who's like not exactly in the movement or anything like that, but is somewhat practicing it, and a lot of the life is like mostly in the materialistic world, but is striving to get somewhere.
But
And then there's
but
also other people who are there's also other people who are like who watch it even from even further away from that
great
space, who are
distance.
kind of and who like don't read all this, but they kind of respect it, and then they just but they are very materialistically inclined. And then there are also people who are aware of these people, but they would they don't they neither have any opinion on what it is, and so they're completely they're very ignorant about it and all that stuff. So they're all different, the different levels of people in different paths.
Yeah,
So
sure.
very
and
interesting, I
and
think.
Krishna reciprocates at an individual level, because depending on where you're at and what your real taste and interest is, he definitely it's not as if he is going to compare one with the other and say, this is superior and that is inferior. Depending on your eagerness, there's the saying that you take one step towards Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards you. That's the mood, to basically claim a bhakta or claim a devotee and help them on their path out of this big mess that we found ourselves in. So people like Parambhava, people like Jayananda are rare. By all ISKCON standards, they are very rare. Parambhava never got known, never really, until this podcast came, a lot of people I think would not even have known such an event occurred. Jayanand was not like that early days, and Jayanand was instrumental in the very first Ratha Yatra that was organized. It was in Los Angeles. Very first. Remember that the West has never seen anything. It was called a festival of chariots. They never seen a Ratha in their life. There was no internet and no mobile, maybe some photo. And he was asked to make the first Rath and to launch it. So from everything like building the cart, it was just a plank of wood. They made two wheels, and then they put some kind of on either side a barricade to prevent the deities from falling over. Then at the big feast that had to be cooked, there was no money really. So he went to all the vegetable shops and asked often for anything that they could give for the Rath Yatra. Anyway, for the temple cooking, he was going to ask. He used to go and ask for discarded vegetables and fruits. But by American standard, discarded vegetables and fruits were in very good condition when you compare with what's available in India. So that was usable there. It was just, like if one day has passed, then they are not allowed to sell it or something. They have some particular standard. So this was his mood even earlier. He had no qualms going to beg for Krishna, going to ask for Krishna, and the Rath Yatra went off quite well. But when he passed away, subsequently, I think few years later, this Jayanand Prabhupada made a rule that made like a law or regulation that any Rath Yatra anywhere, 1967, just imagine, so early, no, San Francisco, right? This is San
Hmm.
Francisco, not Los Angeles. So just imagine that this is right. This is what I have to paint now. These eyes of Baladev on my deities.
Oh, like you have to do it like this, or like this.
Yeah,
You have to
I
do.
have. They already are like this, but the paint has faded. It's been 5 years. The white has turned yellow. The black. So it is a particular enamel paint. I bought those, and I'm doing it like it's. You have to wait for the white to dry, and then this particular features you have to get. When you paint over, you paint their faces a full blank color first. So what I do is, of course, I can look up photos. They're there online. Here is Subhadra. This is Subhadra, but I take photos of my deities quickly, and so that I can just keep referring, cross referring. And it has to be done before next Friday, because that's when Janmashtami is, Ashtami Rohini. So I have to, along with a lot of other things I'm doing, I have to get this out of the way, and then the paint has to dry, and they get new dresses, which are all ready. I bought them. This is, I think, yeah. So Srila Prabhupada made this rule that every Rath Yatra in ISKCON, no matter where, will have a photo of Jayanand Prabhu on the altar, along with Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Along with, of course, his own picture. Srila Prabhupada's picture will be there, but Jayanand Prabhu's picture will also be there. So this is a rare by any standards to show this kind of commitment, like you said, fully into it, no complaints, willing to do all, and finding the stamina or energy, and so happy to do it. But Krishna
So
is just,
they're all carrying this chariot, no? They're all carrying the
they're carrying the deities. The
the
deities have
deity.
to be physically carried and put on it. Actually, the Rath Yatra has been going on in Puri for years. Okay, it's been going on for years in Puri. But ISKCON was the first to take it abroad. Prabhupada was the first to take it abroad, and for a lot of the West, especially in America, they cooperate. And some formal permission was taken. Here they are, the festival of chariots, and people would dance and sing and walk along, and the people would get prasadam distributed. There they are. A lot of people who otherwise wouldn't come to the temple would get attracted seeing these deities, and very curious. They're such strange looking, very strange appearance. It's not what normally you associate with Hinduism, or this is Malati, young Malati. Now she's an elderly lady.
So then they take it to the beach, right? They take it to the beach and
This is because here in San Francisco, you can take it anywhere to a good location. And there was one here in Trivandrum by our ISKCON recently. They took it sometimes to the beach, just whatever will is a viable kind of, and where a lot of people congregate, and whatever is a viable route. Because nowadays it means that you're going to interfere with the traffic, and a lot of people don't like it. So we stick to a highway where there is a lot of space. Other vehicles can move past, and then the rath keeps moving. Rath can be small, big, whatever. But it's a great occasion. It's really some great fun. The kirtan and the sound of the music. I don't think you'll find one in Ernakulam, and but otherwise in Bangalore definitely there have been Rath Yatras. Or those you can just watch online.
Kerala. I don't think it'll be possible because of like political reasons, I guess.
No,
Maybe I don't know.
no, no. You'll be mistaken. They don't object. We've had it now in Trivandrum for many years. They
Okay,
don't
okay.
object at all. The police have to give sanction. The chief minister doesn't interfere, no matter which caste or community or religion or anything. It's just an occasion. Some people are attracted. Some people complain that gosh, the traffic, and then the paper may cover something. Yeah, cover a little bit. So there are two Rath Yatras now in Trivandrum every year. One is by the Karamana Center, and the other is Parashala. Our temple doesn't have Jagannath deities, the big temple in Trivandrum, so we can't take them out. And
Is the
Mayapur, there's
ISKCON Trivandrum is the only ISKCON in Kerala, or is there any other
no,
ISKCON
no,
center?
no. Now there are many centers. There is a center active in Ernakulam, as far as I know, in Tripunitura, in Guruvayur, in Thrissur, in Kollam, in Koilon. You have to just kind of keep checking where the address is. See, it's called Kochi.
There's a community center.
Okay. So that
Okay.
means not actually installed deities or anything. You won't see that a temple has not yet been set up there. but it is a work in progress.
So yeah, it says ISKCON Cochin, but I don't know whether it's the actual ISKCON. This is the ISKCON Trivandrum.
Yeah, that is ISKCON, and that's an old photo because now the deities have changed. Keep
Oh.
searching and you will find. Try ISKCON Cochin, Facebook. Some of the centers are, if there are deities, and it depends on who is doing it. Some are very inspiring, and some may not be so inspiring. Some people go to a center and nothing happens, they don't really like it. Then their job takes them to some other center, and then suddenly everything makes sense. I've known cases like that. They just get the right vibes, and both were ISKCON centers, but in one place they couldn't relate, or it was just too dull for them, and then another, then they move somewhere else and things kind of rapidly happen, or happen meaning they really develop taste.
Hmm.
Yeah, those deities that you just showed, that was when I joined. This was what we had. This is Lord Chaitanya and his associate Nityananda, that is Krishna and Balaram, Gaura Nitai, what you just showed with the arms raised.
Okay.
So the point why we were talking about Jayanand Prabhu was because he was an illustration or an example of someone who found devotional service so joyful. It is Susukam Kartum Avyayam. In verse 2, in chapter 9, Susukam, the
Hmm.
second line says Susukam Kartum Avyayam. It is,
This one.
there you are, Susukam
Susakam
Kartum
Kartam
Avyayam.
Avayam.
Yeah, it's joyfully performed. It's not something that, of course, you are tired, but just the whole experience, because Krishna reciprocates with you and you're doing something that pleases him, so that pleasure passes on to you. That's the idea, whatever it may be. Reading, speaking about Krishna, cooking, doing the Rath Yatra, participating, hearing a lecture, meeting devotees. So that is a glorification of which we covered last class. And in the next class, yeah, there's also something about pavitram, that it purifies. It's not just that it is pure, it also purifies a person more and more. We'll get back to a story about uh, real life incident or story to show how it purified the heart of a person who was actually a thief. He visited the Trivandrum temple and he spoke very openly. A man called Haridas, Indian. But I'll tell you that story a little later. Now here you have in verse 3, which is what really our section. Would you like to read the
Yeah.
translation, please? Yeah.
So those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world.
Okay, so just,
The
yeah, the
yeah, yeah,
faithless.
go. Then so the purport. Shall I read the purport?
Yeah, just start
Oh,
reading just the first para.
so okay, the faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Unfortunate people, even after hearing all the evidence of Vedic literature from great personalities, still have no faith in God. They are hesitant and cannot stay fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus, faith is the most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, one can achieve all perfection. That is called real faith. As stated in the Srimad
Okay,
Bhagavatam, Yata
yeah,
Taror Mula Chanina.
yeah. You can skip to the translation by giving water to the root of a tree.
By giving water to the root of a tree, one satisfies its branches, twigs, and leaves, and by supplying food to the stomach, one satisfies all the senses of the body. Similarly, by engaging in the transcendental service of the Supreme Lord, one automatically satisfies all the demigods and all other living entities. Therefore, after reading Bhagavad Gita, one should promptly come to the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. One should give up all other engagements and adopt the service of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. If one is convinced of this philosophy of life, that is faith.
Okay, so this faith, like the Arjuna was told in the first verse of this chapter that because he's not envious, he's been given this. So this knowledge. Now in verse 3, we are told those who don't have faith, they can't benefit from this knowledge, and now do they get this knowledge? And the way to develop faith is basically to associate with devotees. There's no doubt about it. You speak to people who have faith, it rubs off on you. And the way to protect faith is to avoid the company of non-devotees that can be harmful. To a certain extent, our interaction with non-devotees is a must to survive in this world. You cannot expect to have devotees in all our dealings. I hardly have anybody. I mean, just our material daily dealings, so many things going on. But at the same time, then the thing to do is to not get into a discussion with them that can damage our faith unless you feel they are going to throw some more light and you're going to be able to make a dent in their approach. So we have to really be choosy or picky and discriminate in whom you're going to discuss these matters with. It's dangerous to start talking about this with everyone. I mean, it's okay, that's nice if you're sure that some may be genuinely interested. Otherwise, how will you know unless you test the water? But if there is a sign that one of them is really full of envy, full of lack of faith, and is going to try set their mind to confuse and break our faith, then it's best to bring that kind of interaction quickly to a halt. Unless we are so strongly, until and unless, that is when we are ourselves so strongly fixed up and in a position to argue or to communicate our total faith, then one can get back into an argument or discussion with this kind of person. So, and meanwhile, we just keep trying to build our faith by reading and hearing and doing the things we like and clearing our doubts.
I
And
think
once,
I was actually this. I wanted to make this point. Like I think something just came in my mind. Like most people when they get into spirituality, the first thing that they want to do is they want to become like a spiritual teacher. They want to get the knowledge so that they can explain everything to other people and all that. Like I've seen that like even if they have little bit of knowledge, then they immediately want to teach somebody else about what this like what it is and what is it's even I also felt like that in sometime in between. I was like, oh, I have this knowledge, I can say whatever I want to say now, I can do this, I can do that. But then like that's also kind of like a trap in one sense.
but is
You
it
don't
wholly negative, Kannan? Because sometimes there is joy in sharing
No, that's
something
why
discovered,
there is
isn't it?
like there is, but then like at times like you can also come across as being a little bit like a little bit preachy to some people,
That
and
I
then you
get.
like that, and also like if you explain something, they'll be like, but I didn't want to hear this, like or you can understand by their facial expressions like they don't not interest they're not interested to hear this. So then I'm like, okay, like, I'll stop, I'll change the topic or I'll talk about something else.
And
And
usually
like
the targets, I think, unfortunate targets are our own family members, isn't it?
yeah, most of them are like
Parents,
that.
siblings. Same
Yeah,
here.
so but not like sometimes also when I do get the chance, if I'm in a the situation is right and I'm talking to somebody else, I'll just bring out if I bring out this and talk to somebody, they'll listen, they'll like, oh, okay, okay, interesting. But then that after the interaction, they're not going to think about it after some time. It's going to move. It's like they've already forgotten about it. They know that you're part of something, but they don't know what it is. And like in your mind, okay, I'm doing so much of like I'm reading every day, I'm doing all this, and like it's like sometimes I wonder like why is it that I am the only one, like I know all these people, the people around me, like I'm the only one who kind of like who knows all this, but like nobody else seems to be like
Uh-huh.
interested in that. So it's like you can get a bit like is like you can also
Isolated.
like you can not
Isolated.
yeah isolating, or even you can doubt everything. But then I think at some point I kind of realized that this is perfect, this is good for me, like it's not good for anybody else, like for I can't say like whether this would be good for this other person. Like I know that this works well for me because I believe very strongly in it, so I have a lot of faith in it. But if I think that just because I have faith, then somebody else will also have faith if I tell them, that's not right.
You
So
see, no, I think one thing, sorry to interrupt, but I think you have to remember that you have probably done some things in your past life to bring you to this point where you were ready to inquire, and
yeah,
those other people haven't. You see, so that's the reason. But there's another way. Instead of just explaining in this preachy way, you can explain just by you can convey just by example. Supposing there's a situation where they expect you to really blow your top or to lose your cool.
Uh, I have tried. I actually that also I've tried, but then a lot of not to be like negative or anything here, but actually the thing is like what I've understood is that like people if like I have certain like I like my in my practice a lot of the
Yeah.
practice that I do now is very like action oriented. So I
Uh-huh.
will like whatever the case may be, like in whichever situation I'll be in, I will have to meditate 20 to 30 hours. And when I'm doing that, I'll be meditating on Krishna, or like if I'm chanting also, like I'll chant like loudly also. So it doesn't matter like in whichever situation I'll be like it's very demonstrative what I'm doing. So if I do something, so I may be in say one some friend's house or my like my place in my parents' house or whichever place I'll be, like it's very demonstrative what I'm doing. So they kind of know okay that he's doing this. But but most of the time people are kind of um like they kind of they're not able to like sort of relate to that in some way in some shape or form. So I can understand that. And it's difficult because like but a lot of people I've seen like what like I know a lot of friends, like actually two or three of friends of mine have actually seen this podcast, and they've listened to this podcast, and they said that oh there were some really good points that you had, and like or I listened to it. And a friend of mine even like recently like asked me about meditation, didn't ask me about Krishna consciousness as such or
Right.
anything
Right.
anything related to Krishna consciousness, but just asked me like so he asked me like how do you meditate, tell me how do you meditate. So I said um, I don't know. I didn't want to get into the Krishna's thing. I just told him like there's
Right.
different
Right.
ways of doing it. You can do it the most simplest way is just to focus on one thing, keep your thought in that, and then just keep meditating that way.
Calm
It's
your
easier
mind.
that way. Calm your mind, just focus on that. And I was, in one sense, I was like almost like a bit, like almost like a little scared to say, okay, we like go
Mm,
into Krishna consciousness, because I was like, if I say that, what if they're not interested in, what if they're not interested to meditate also? So like, if they don't like, they're not able to pick it up. And then that's when I realized like that this belief, even though it's universal, and
yeah.
if everybody followed it throughout the world, it would work for everybody. It's somehow it seems like people, they even faced with the truth, they're not going to accept it, even if you try to explain to people around
Not
it.
everything you're saying, Kannan. I think the issue is just this, that you're kind of all alone in your situation.
uh,
Some of these are genuine problems. Even when we joined, I faced not being able to share with any relatives. So it's like manna from heaven that someone on my mother's side, that is my uncle's son, yourself, namely, has got so much interest and taste already. It's like a long answered prayer or whatever. But in my case, there were two of us. There was at least my mother and myself. And although my mother's approach to this is different, her interest within Krishna consciousness is different. There were two of us. I was not alone. So it's genuinely hard for a person who's alone. But I think that there again, after a while, Krishna will make some arrangements that you will be able to interact with like minded, same aged people. Not just that you have to be stuck with very elderly men giving class in some ISKCON center, not meaning to demean them in any
that
way.
that's
You
that
know?
that's another problem. The people in like in my generation, um most of them are not, most of them are interested in like other things and all that stuff,
It's
but
not
they
true. It's just that you've not met them, Kannan. There are people
yeah,
here in Kaikutam, in Techno Park, who are coming just once a week. They can't do more. They can't do anything at home. It's just right now in your situation, you can't get out of your evening shift, and we don't know if there
yeah,
is.
that's also true. That's also true. Yeah,
So
that's
just
also
be patient.
I would say that because like
Yeah,
it's the yeah, my work thing is also there. But and I know that there are people also who are like in my age, but it's fascinating how like at least if you speak to somebody that's a little older, they're even if they're not part of the Krishna conscious, if they don't believe in, they're not Krishna conscious as such like that, they generally have more faith in the idea of
the God. I
God, and in the idea of that, so they're more conducive to like discuss with you on those kind of things.
guess
If you
it's a
talk to
different
people,
generation. Yeah,
yeah, it's a
different
different
generation.
generation. So if you talk to people, in my generation, a lot of them are mostly concerned about their work, and some of them are concerned about, okay, some of them, a lot of them are mostly, they would say that they're spiritual and they're less religious in their
I
outlook, in the
understand.
way they,
Yeah.
in the way they think. So if I discuss, if I don't discuss Krishna consciousness, but if I discuss something that's related to spirituality, like your spirit and you're a spark of spiritual energy, which is a more like jnanic way of discussing the whole thing, then people are more like, oh, what is that? What is like, what is the, what does that mean and all that stuff. And then you kind of have to sort of bring in this idea of Krishna consciousness or the idea of Krishna in it, and discuss with them and all that stuff. And like so when I went to ISKCON and I met when I went to ISKCON temple, I could see like there were a lot of people of different ages that were there,
Right.
and there were
Yeah.
people
Right.
of different there were people, like, even the person that I'd met who was like a priest, or was he like a devotee, he was serving the temple deities over there and all that. The person
Okay.
who showed us around, he was also, I think, maybe my age, or I don't know, I'm not sure. But his case also, he was describing that the reason why he was almost like he went into a tragic state. He
Huh.
said that he was like, he was in engineering, and he was disillusioned by the idea of engineering, and then he was seeking something, and then he found this.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that, like, if there is somebody from like our generation, they're not or naturally going to be that religiously inclined. But if they do get into this path, it's mostly like there's some kind of tragedy that's involved in that.
No,
There's like a,
it's just
or there's
that
some kind
you
of
no, Kanan.
or
It's just that you
something
are.
that makes them feel
I
like that. Yeah.
understand. Yeah, and but those are not the only examples at all. Just be a little patient because there are so many who in your generation, your type of job, your type of family, and no tragedy has occurred. Just their inquiring mind and quest for something more must be there. That drive brings them to ISKCON and ISKCON philosophy. And it's not as if all of them quit and joined the temple. It's not like that at all. It's becoming less and less like that now. In the early days of ISKCON, it was like that, this or the other, one
Yeah.
or the other. It is not like that at all now. Like, I can guarantee there are weekly discussions going on in Kayakutam, which is really where Technopark is. It's like the IT hub. Who are the people coming? They are people like you, your age, maybe a little older, some of them already with families. They come, some speak more comfortably in Hindi, some Malayalam, English. Mostly they're working, the medium is English. So it's just that right now where you are, I'm sure Krishna will arrange because he's arranging things, he's reciprocating with your sincere interest, and he is giving so much input into your situation. So if you're just patient, I'm sure, and when the minute you start mixing with people like in your situation, it's almost like unconsciously you learn how to share this knowledge to people who don't just blank out and say this is not for me. You learn this is
So
just a stage. Yeah.
yeah, so as I can, so yeah, that part also is like, it's true, because in the place that I am currently in, is the place where I'm working. So there's no like access to that as much as I would like. And
Yeah.
when it comes to deep, like, continue like, getting more deep into it, so I've like thought about it a lot and tried to figure out, okay, so if there's any time that I get some free time where I'm able to like expand this and go beyond this level and see if there's
I'll tell
anything else
you,
that I can. Hmm.
don't worry. I will tell you, I will find out since Janmashtami is coming. I know it may be a working day for you, but it so happens the day after Janmashtami is the day Srila Prabhupada was born. So even if Janmashtami is celebrated on Friday for ISKCON, but for Kerala it is Thursday. The following day after ISKCON Janmashtami, this coming Friday, we're talking about the 19th, the next day, Saturday, most temples or centers will have something happening because that is celebrated as the appearance of Srila Prabhupada, his birthday. He really was born the day after Janmashtami. So I
Oh,
will just check up if there is anything suitable happening anywhere in Ernakulam that you can link up with. That may be just like a beginning point where there are other young people, your kind of job, your kind of age, which is I'll check up. I'll just make that effort and find out. And then even if that's not
uh,
possible for Ashtami, there are many other occasions coming up. Yeah, go on.
I wouldn't mind being in that, but like you had mentioned, like travel would definitely be something that I would that I would like to do, where I would be able to like go and experience different things. It's just that like uh, I just wish that my work timings was like a lot different compared
Don't
to what I
worry, you've
have right
already
now.
been so
So
patient. I'm sure Krishna will reward you. With
yeah.
some change circumstances that make at least one little flight visit available somewhere which really boosts your morale and boosts your interest in all this. I'm
So
quite
yeah,
sure.
like that's my like so my this thing on this was only like I wanted to just make that point that like in my like kind of heart and this thing I'd love to see like more people get into it so that like they
Right.
can discuss these things and all that. But I also know that there's like I mean they keep saying no there's a time and place and circumstance for
That's
certain
true.
things to happen. There's like a certain like even I think there was that story where Prabhupada also was like he was in Russia or something and he was like was it he was using that bucket or something as like
Lota,
prasadam.
lota, that toilet
I don't know.
pot.
I keep remembering that example all the time for some reason. Like I'm like, yeah, if he can do something like that, then like there will be certain instances and circumstances where you have to make certain adjustments and all that stuff in your own life to do practices. Like one, I can't like I make it a point every day to do my like routine every single day, and
Okay.
sometimes people are not. I get up in the morning. Some in certain instances, it's like very difficult because the room is not there or there's too much noise or there's so a
Uh,
lot of things happening so it's very difficult to execute that. So I get a bit like almost like a little frustrated in one sense because I'm like I need to do this because if I don't do this I feel like my day is going to be like bad. I have to do it like on I have to do it today. So I'll like I'll be like I'll remember the story. I'll be like I'll sit in the bathroom and I'll do my thing. That's it. I'll be like okay, I'll be meditating in the bathroom and I'll do all this stuff. Sounds funny, but like so I'm just thinking like I was just like when I'm having interaction, I'm like I think about my like what I the thing that I do and the levels that I'm like willing to go for some in a weird way, and compared to somebody else, and I'm like oh there's so much of difference, but like with anything you're you have to understand like what like your place in this whole system like your place in this is that you're like you've like I keep thinking like I like even the idea of like getting into it was even though it came out of some like a difficult situation, that is your that is sort of your reality. That's sort of your that's how you got
yeah,
into
yeah.
it, but not everybody is going to get into it in the same way. And so it's like, and also like you don't have to you don't have to worry too much about if somebody else is not getting into it or not getting into it, because that's where they are at in that time. So that's where like they're in that time, in that moment, like in that particular time, they're in that place, they're in that circumstance or whatever, so they're in that particular situation.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that time place circumstance thing definitely helps to understand like these kind of problems and these kind of things and all that. Otherwise, like what will happen is that you'll be like you can have a lot of ego, and there are a lot of gurus and sadhus and sages who like you
Yeah.
also know like who are very
Yeah. Yeah.
popular in on various platforms and all. They're also doing a lot of good things and all, but they can also like they can you can sort of have this belief that you know all the answers to everything, or like you have the complete faith and idea and all that stuff, when that is like the complete opposite. Certain gurus and sages will say that studying the scriptures, I don't study the scriptures at all. I
Yeah.
don't
You
read
don't.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't read the Gita. Like there'll be certain people who will say, I don't read the Gita at all. I don't read this at all. And like after having read it, I'm like, oh, there's so much to learn and there's so much to understand from this. There's so much of wisdom behind it that if more people did listen to it, did read it, did understand, at least like try to understand what it is. Like I remember like just telling somebody recently that I'm reading the Gita. Like I read the Gita, and somebody asked me what's your favorite book. I said the Gita is probably my favorite book, and then they said I'm scared to read the Gita. So,
Uh-huh.
and this was somebody who's like younger than me actually. So I said there's nothing to
Yeah.
fear.
Why? Why?
I don't know. Like I don't know. I asked him like, what is there to fear? Like I don't like because this. I think like I think the problem is a lot of. I think they're scared of their foundations being broken because like they're scared of like somebody telling them that okay that you've got your entire like whatever you've done up till now is wrong and like or whatever you've done up till now whatever your principles and beliefs are they're wrong. So like if they listen to the Gita and they listen to it, they're scared a lot of the times that it's going to say something that's going to be contradictory to what their beliefs are, so they're scared of that.
Possible. How do you know that it's? I'm just giving two other reasons. One is that a lot of people think the Bhagavad Gita is just a high scholarly philosophical treatise or text that they won't understand anything. So if they are scared, it might be that they are just going to look a fool. It's all just going to fly over their head. The other thing we know as ISKCON ladies, when we used to go door to door to distribute the Bhagavad Gita.
Uh, Switch to your mic. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, can you
Yeah,
hear me now? Yeah.
yeah, I can hear.
So, two standard responses in Kerala in the situation. One is, of course, they open the door and say, "We already have a Gita there," and they point maybe two, three books, not necessarily ISKCON. Are they reading? No, they're not reading. Why are they not reading? This is the second standard response because the Bhagavad Gita was spoken on a battlefield during the Mahabharata. There's a blind
Violence.
belief it will cause quarrel in the family.
Right. Okay.
There's a blind belief that the same fighting mentality will come into the family if you start reading touch the Gita. So these are things that we're just living with. Like, as somebody said, these are just Maya's tactics, and Maya's constantly updating her app, her updating her software. So all funny ideas people get into in Kerala, is certainly in my city, they might have a image, a statue, an idol of Krishna. They may or may not worship. They may have the deity that in the garden. They may have in the drawing room. They will remove the flute. You ask them, where is the flute? Krishna is incomplete without the flute, especially if the iconography is such that he's got his hands like this. Where is the flute? They removed it and put it away. Why? Because there is another blind belief that Krishna with the flute blows away all your happiness and your material assets.
Oh.
He just takes away all the assets. They've got some strange idea that he does that to make you surrender and turn to him. And it is through the flute, that when he blows the flute. So it's tough to overcome these kind of blind beliefs. Of course, I don't know your friend where he's coming from when he said,
Yeah,
I'm a,
she was. I mean,
she was,
it's in the colleagues basically at work. So once I had mentioned that I like we were talking about books. I was like just saying that like for me like I mean I get a lot of I read the Gita and I feel like that's the most important thing that I read every day or um so then she's also like I mean she's also Hindu. She's North Indian Hindu actually. It's okay. So I'm like, so she said that it scares her to read the Gita. So I'm like, I don't know what is there to. I was like, I don't know what is there to be like. I was like, what is it like? Then I realized that like when I read the Gita, like in one sense like I came from like a sort of a tragic sort of situation, so for me I was like reading it from like, oh, I'll read anything that can help me. But if somebody is there in a position where they're in a position that
comfortable,
they're,
comfortable,
they're comfortable, they're in a
content.
position where they're content, they're comfortable and everything in their life is going sort of well, and then they read the Gita, then their belief is getting challenged very instantly. Their ideas are getting challenged. So I realized, oh, that might be the reason why that she's scared. She's scared because her belief is going to be challenged, and that's why she's not able to read the Gita. If you're in a state, if you're in a condition where everything is going bad, then anything that you read, you'll automatically like, I'll just take anything. I'll just accept everything and I'll just read everything. That was the state I was in when I read the Gita and when I was getting interested in it. I was in that state where everything was like kind of difficult for me. So when I read it, I was like, oh, this is like the best. Like, this is has the most important knowledge and the most important information. So that, for my experience, was very different. So I realized that for a lot of people, like it's not going to be the same way. So in even in her case also, she's coming at it from a point of view that like her like she there's nothing like there's no tragedy or anything like that as such that's happening, or there's no like she's not being in a place where she's depressed or anything like that. None of that is taking place. So when she reads it, she's reading it from like, oh, but I have these beliefs. So if I listen to Krishna saying something like, you don't be engaged in materialistic activities, he's being arrogant, he's being selfish, he's being this, he's being that. So I can't listen to him, or I can't listen to that. um,
I
but
think there's a lot of misunderstanding and misconceptions about the Bhagavad Gita. That's one.
hmm,
And other thing is, not everybody may have the kind of interest you have for philosophy. This is a mistake I used to make. They may appreciate the philosophy, it's given in a much more colorful and simpler kind of formula. Supposing the same lady, just attend some program, there's a lot of song and dance, and some other young people like her are dressed up and they're doing dancing something to Kirtan, and there's a class, and the class basically delivers, it's a Bhagavad Gita class, let's say, in some simple format, something may register, but she accepted the formula because it came disguised with all frills and fancies. So this was a mistake I used to make. I used to think that just because I have great taste and appetite to understand philosophically what is correct and what is, everyone else is like that. In fact, there is a famous Bhagavatam or scriptural verse that says this. uh, I'm not getting it now. That as I am, so I think the whole world is.
yeah.
Okay, okay, that is so, but that's not the case. The same person may respond to a different kind of stimulus and receive the same information you're trying to reach them.
I
So
always
I,
I
yeah,
always come back I always come back to that verse in the Canto 11 chapter 23 text 42, when this is a story about the Brahmana from Avanti country.
yeah, Avanti
So the
Brahman, yeah,
story, so he's like, we are talking about I think you had given the example of somebody in Trivandrum who was greedy and who kind of came back and became normal, I would say. But like the story of where there's a Brahmana, he has a lot of opulence, he's greedy and lusty in beginning. So instead of sharing his, I written this down in my own words so that I can
right.
like remember it. So
Okay, yeah,
instead of sharing his opulence, he was very stingy and he kept his wealth very close to him. The rest of his family members were irritated and annoyed of him. Slowly, all his opulence was taken by his own family members and other thieves. So he was like, first he was very greedy and this thing. Then this family was very jealous of his wealth. Then, then thieves came and stole his money
his
basically.
SS, yeah,
And once everything went away, he realized that okay, like he realized that that he had down like he had fallen down, and he became a sannyasi, and then he had taken a vow of silence to only remember Krishna the whole time. And but even after taking this vow of silence of remembering Krishna the whole time, his life was not simple. He was like constantly ridiculed by people. He was kicked. He was beaten. He was verbally assaulted. He was shamed for being poor, and people called him a hypocrite on a daily basis. Like people were like, who are you? This that. They kept calling him a hypocrite and all that stuff. And throughout this time, this Brahmana did not take any offense. Like he didn't take any single offense the whole time. And like how he managed to do that is that he had there's this verse that he kept saying in his mind. It's like Dvija uvacha nayam jano me sukha dukha hetur na devatatma graha karma kalaha manaha param
responsible for
karanam
the, it is time
karanam
alone.
amananti yeah, it's like these people are not the cause of my happiness and distress, neither are the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work or time. Rather, it is the mind alone that causes
Okay,
happiness and
mind alone.
distress, and perpetuates a rotation of material life. And then I was like, oh, that makes, it's the mind that causes, because a lot of times I'll think before this verse I was think, oh, it's karma, it's like it's my past life that's causing this problem, it's my past, like this person's angry with me, this person's like trying to like is trying to agitate me out of because of my past karma, because of my past action. So I used to be like, okay, that must be the reason. And then,
Actually,
but then
yeah,
but even after that, I was like, but it still doesn't like, how can you keep, you can't keep living your life if you keep thinking that, it's your past karma, because like you don't have any control over your past karma. And if you're talking about the here and now,
right.
the brahmana is saying that, this thing is caused by the mind. So the main thing is that it's not the karma of your past life, it's not time, it's not the demigods, it's not the planets, it's not any of this, it's your mind that's causing this problem from happening in it. So control the
It's
mind from
and
there.
it's how you respond. Because if you
Yeah.
control your mind, that controls how you respond. Actually, the Avanti Brahmins realizations are even higher than Parikshit Maharaj's realizations at the end of Canto 1. At the end of Canto 1, when Parikshit Maharaj knows he's going to be bitten by the snake bird because he was cursed by the son of that Brahmin, and there is nothing that can be done. His realization is that no use blaming Shringi, the young, arrogant, haughty son of a Brahmin, etc., took revenge. No use blaming all that. This is just Kala or time. That's one understanding. That, like you say, good times turn to bad times, then they again turn to good times. So when we have to go through bad phases in life, it's time, the cycle, and Krishna himself says that he is Kala or time. Time I am. So that's one level. But the Avanti Brahmins is going even beyond that. He is saying it's not the planetary movements. That means it's not
Not the
time.
demigods.
Because it's a time, meaning that astrologically the time just changes, bad time, good time. And he's saying it's the mind. So it is a very high level of realization. I don't think there's anything higher than that. And as you correctly say, that to be able to control your mind means to be able to control the responses you're going to show in different situations. But
I recite, sorry to cut you off, Supriya.
no, go on,
I
go on.
recite this verse. I recite this verse like every time, like there's something that's agitating my mind, or like I feel like something bad has happened or whatever. Or somebody said something or did something, or some unfortunate circumstance happens. I'll like recite this verse constantly. I'll go back to like take my phone. I'll recite this verse, and I'll try to understand. And then I realize, oh, it's the mind. The mind is what is causing this problem. Like, it's like this person actually doesn't have any problem with me. This person is just expressing their opinion, like their point of view. So the main thing is that, like, why is this problem happening? It's not because of this person. It's not because of where they're from. It's not because of what they are. It's not because of that. It's not because of anything that I said or did. It's this thing, like, this doubt is coming because it's just created from the mind. It's the mind is the one that's creating this doubt. And it's the mind is only getting agitated, but you yourself is like, your body is separate from that. Like, your body is not reacting, it's the mind that's causing this reaction. So just control, like, be able to control that aspect of the mind. If you're able to control that and calm it, then even you realize that you learn to accept the other person's point of view also. Like, you learn to
When you
accept
think like that, does the hurt or problem go away when you
it goes.
rationalize
Yeah, it
this away?
like yeah, it takes a bit of time, but it'll go away. Otherwise what will happen is that, like, you'll think about it
Stays in
for,
you.
like, you'll think about it for a long time. And then when you think about it for a long time, in that period you might end up doing some things that will hurt you. Like, if you're not able to let things go, then that one thought can remain with you for months and months and months and months and months. It can be there for a
Festers
long.
and festers. You keep
Yeah.
going back to that dialogue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then you'll think this person did this thing, this person did something bad to me. That means everybody's also done something. Everybody can also do something bad to me.
right.
So you can go on a different level as well. But if you remember, that's why I would say that, there are a lot of gurus and sages who say that, reading scripture is not important. But in my case, I can speak for my own self. I would like disagree very strongly with that, and I would
I
say, like,
agree 100%. I
reading
agree
reading
100%.
I would say that reading scriptures is very important, because, like, you need to keep remembering that you need to keep, because again, it comes back to the mind, where Arjuna tells Krishna, like, the mind is so difficult, like it's like the wind. How do you control something that's more powerful than the wind itself?
Correct.
So there's an entire, like, section in the Gita talking about the mind only, and talking about how it's very difficult to control the mind. So I'm like, and unless you're constantly reminded of these things on a regular basis, you're not going to, like change is not going to happen then. Like it'll be a artificial change, but like you probably know the best because you've been studying this for almost like decades, and you've been reading, and you've been around with people who are
Trying,
practicing
yeah.
this. So you know this better than most people, that to it's not just enough to just say that you're interested in it, but it's also that you have to take different steps. You have to like
Correct,
read, you have to
correct.
do this, you have to do a lot of things, and only then you will be able to get to a stage where you can, sort of like live it in one sense, like be able to live that process. And
Correct.
so which one thing I believe, which is like, and so one thing that at least now I will believe very strongly is that like you can't, like you have to keep practicing every day. Like you have to keep saying it again and again, and it's keep, because you read once and you'll be like, okay, I'm very happy now, but then the next day something will happen to you, and then you won't be able to control it, and then you'll again go down into one negative space. So to keep yourself in like a uh, positive
Frame
way,
of
you'll have to
mind.
keep reminding yourself about this again and again. So that's what
It's true. Meanwhile, I will try and just find out about some links or something that is doable for you. Some one person who you may interact with, you may not care to interact with. That's okay later. You know, someone same age, like minded. I'll see. I'll check up because now you're in Ernakulam. I know something about what's happening in Ernakulam, the kind of discussions or centers or celebrations or whatever. And there's no hard and fast rule that you have to make it. It's not like that. So I will keep it in mind.
I just don't know whether I'll get the time. That's the only
I
thing.
understand.
Because
I can see the
if I
situation.
if like if I had the time, then I probably wouldn't. I would probably done something where I could like travel and do things and all that stuff, and I would have probably done that. But I don't know. Like I'm thinking that like at least for a couple of years, I can, like if I work a little hard and if I get enough, if I can save enough money, then I
Savings.
can just go, and without any like baggage in my mind of like having to think about oh, like I can't, I have to do this but I also have to work. I have to do this but I also have to work. With like if I can like save enough money, if I can like get in a better place, then without like then I'll be in a place where I also have some material benefit, like I have
That's a
some
good
material,
plan. That's
and
a decent.
also I'll be able to, because
That's a
I think
fair.
I think the best things are like, I think it's best to like, I think the best things are always like when it's like a gradual, like when things are happening in
Absolutely.
a gradual way. So when things
Absolutely.
happen, I think
I will send you a particular verse from chapter 18, which maybe you've already come across, where happiness in the three modes. And happiness in the highest mode, which is in the mode of goodness, is something that tastes not very pleasant in the beginning, but in the end it is sweet. You understand, because this is what you've just kind of hit the point, that it says it tastes like poison initially, the happiness, that's a mode of, because it's hard to accept, to digest, to live with. And then when you accept, you to wait for it to develop gradually, in the end it tastes really sweet. So that's happiness in
I
the mode of goodness.
I learned this like actually when I was very small. My parents took me, like they used to go and see this doctor. Like this doctor was a was an like was it like this was like a family doctor in one sense. So it was like
CP,
um
general physician, general
no no no
physician,
what is that
Ayurveda,
not Ayurveda, but what is that other, that like opposite of
naturopathy,
homeopathy, like
homeopathy.
where
Oh,
they'll give you those small
small pills.
white
Yeah, yeah,
pills,
yeah.
know that. So we
I
used to
know
go
your.
there.
Uh-huh.
So we used to go to this doctor. He was a Gujarati actually, and so
Dr. Patel,
he
Dr.
no no
Patel.
no, it was Shah something.
Ah, Shah, because I have been there. He's a
Oh,
famous
you know.
homeopathic doctor. Yeah, yeah, Dr. Shah.
I've been, so we used to go to like where we have like cough and cold and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So he once, like I used to tell my parents like this homeopathy and all is like it's so like it's not gonna work,
Slow.
compared to allopathy and all. Allopathy
Yeah,
is so
yeah.
much better. It works like this so fast.
Correct.
So I remember once I was telling him this, I think in his in his office, and he said like the best things in life are always the things that go gradually. The best things always, like, so you know if you have this, it may not
True.
have the, it may not have like the immediate effect, it'll take
Gave
time.
off from the beginning. Yeah.
But if you wait, then it'll gradually, you'll see how that it'll have a long term impact. So if you're having this
True.
homeopathy, in the short term it may not impact you, but in the long term it'll like cause all things to go away and all that stuff.
Absolutely, so true. Because that's all really mode of goodness thinking, sattva guna, to be patient for the rewards to come in and to keep going diligently. Whereas mode of ignorance is immediately it is very exciting and intoxicating, like intoxicants themselves. But you pay heavy price. You know, different things happen, or it ruins your liver when you keep looking for that kind of quick fix pleasure. So
Mm.
this is mode of goodness thinking. So Kannan, can we stop today because it's
Yeah.
6:20? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and
sure, sure, sure.
meeting next Saturday same
We
time, and we'll
only
carry on.
we only did one verse of
Yes,
this.
but it's because it led to a discussion and disclosure like
Yeah,
this from you,
yeah.
or you're sharing your thoughts
Yeah,
on faith.
I really,
I
I
don't
really
mind.
liked it. I really
Yeah,
liked
I
it, and
don't
I
mind.
also, yeah. So I was because even I also like when I get to hear your opinions and views also. It also like I also feel like, oh, that's like in a lot of sense it's very sim like a lot of things I can understand to be very similar, you know.
Right?
So
Yeah.
I'm like, so I and so that's so yeah, I feel like that. So it's nice that way.
Yeah, I don't mind it's just been one verse because it's a crucial topic, faith, and like as I said, I could get to hear from you a lot. So I will we'll get back on from verse 4, no issues, next
Sure.
Saturday.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll just end this recording.